This is a continuation of the grafted in, and what I wanted to, there's some things that I need to cover, and this will probably be more of a series of several of how I've grown and why Torah has become so important to me. It's because it's part of being grafted in. Part of being grafted in is you have some of the characteristics of the plant that you're grafted into. It becomes part one and the same, and it becomes like it, but and it bears fruit. And what I've been told is that olive tree, they would graft in other branches to whence it stopped growing. Once it stopped producing olives, they would cut that branch off. They would graft in something else. So, as grafted in Gentiles, we need to realize, or regrafted if we are Jewish or Hebrew, one who was crossed over. We need to look at what is that. So this one is about This one will be a little bit about abiding, what it means to abide in the vine, as John 15 talks about. But I'm going to start in 1 John 3, verse 22 and following. It says, whatever we ask, we receive from him, because we keep his commandments and do the things that are pleasing in his sight. So this talks about us keeping his commandments. And it continues, this is his commandment, that we believe in the name of his son Jesus, or Yeshua Christ, and love one another just as he commanded us. The one who keeps his commandments abides in him, and he in him. We know by this that he abides in us by the Spirit whom he has given us, which, if you read Jeremiah 31:31 through 33, it talks about how he will make a new covenant and he will put the law upon our hearts. And it's also talked about in Hebrew. It's brought up again in Hebrews and all those sorts of things. So we also look at here's 1 John 5 verse 3. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome. For whoever is born of God overcomes the world, and this is the victory that has overcome the world, our faith. So it's part of abiding. So one of the things we need to figure out, okay, what's abiding? But also, before we go there, we look at for 1 John 1 John 2 verses 3 and following. It says, by this we know that we have come to know him, if we keep his commandments. The one who says, I have come to know him, and does not keep his commandments is a liar. The truth, or Torah, truth being Torah, because you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. But he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. That's what Yeshua had said. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And if you look at John 1, it talks about it, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Well, the Word being the Torah, that's where it started out, and the tablets were put in the ark. And by the way, the ark contains salvation, both with Noah and with the Ark of the Covenant. Salvation was within. Just as a side note there. But I'll continue reading here in a second. Verse 4. The one who says, I have come to know him, and does not keep his commandments is a liar. The truth is not in him. But whoever keeps his word, in him the love of God has truly been perfected. By this we know that we are in him. The one who says he abides in him ought to also himself walk in the same manner as he walked. So why is this important? This is important because in our love for Yeshua, and I know for me personally, that I needed to know, okay, what am I missing here? I've learned about the Sabbath and the holy days. That was within that. I grew up with that. I know some haven't, so they have to get into that. But when I started to realize the Hebraic roots, it started to be more of where I needed to spend more time in his Torah and understanding, learning about him and his word. And I will mention about John 15. That basically here Yeshua is talking about being the vine. He says in verse 1, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. And then it goes into talking about the branches, and it says, abide. Verse 4 says, abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, so neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, and you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, he bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away as a branch and dries up, and they gather him and cast them into the fire, and they are burned up, which you could refer to the lake of fire. That's why one of the things that happens is their branches, their sin. And then it says, verse 8, it says, burned up. Verse 7, if you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. My Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. Well, disciples do what they're taught to do. That's why in the Great Commission it talked about go out and preach the gospel, but it also says, and make disciples of all men. Well, part of making disciples is teaching them how to live. So for me, being in his word is teaching me. It's reproof. It's changing me. It's molding me, that I'm hopefully seeking to bear more fruit. And so that's how it matters to me. And it says in verse 10, if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. This is verse 12. This is my commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. Well, how do we do that? How do we love one another? That you look at at John 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Well, it also says God is love. God is love. The Word is love. Not only the fact that Yeshua died for us, which is important for us to understand and to accept, but also that he died for us, but also live as he lived. He followed this book. And one point real quick I don't want to let this video get too long. But quick point, rightly divide the word. If you notice, these are ripped out of my Bibles. That Bible, here's another. All of my Bibles, I've ripped out these pages because it doesn't rightly divide the word. New Testament, Old Testament, that's not a right division of the word. It's one book. But the fact that we're grafted in makes this whole book matter. Because this is his story. His story, or history, his story needs to become our story as grafted in believers. So that's where we need to go.